But the one which is even in this case, the one which is advised, okay, is to use is what? SSH. Okay. So now, as a network administrator, you are not going to you are not going to implement Telnet knowing that it's not secured. Are you okay? Is it clear enough?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So now, okay. So now, okay. Let me before starting with the SSH configuration. As I said, SSH. Okay, we have it in two versions. Okay, so we have SSH version 1 and SSH version 2, and the one which is preferred is SSH version 2, which is which is the more advanced one, or the more recent one, SSH version 2. So now, wait. Okay, and when it comes to the configuration, okay, we can also make sure that, okay, that SSH version 2 is activated. uh, Let me now go here. So what I'm going to do, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to configure the IP addresses first on all devices. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so as I was saying, so I'm just going to configure IP addresses on all devices first. Okay, so I'll go on I will start with the lab, the desktop here, the computers down here. So I'll click on PC0. Okay, I'll go to desktop, I'll go to IP configuration, and I'll here, when they on the IPv4 address field here, I will assign the IPv4 address 192.168.1.1, the subnet mask, okay, which is the default one, and here I will assign the default gateway IP address, which is the IP address of the router, 192.168.1.254. Okay, then I will exit. I'll go to the second device here, I'll do the same thing, 192.168.1.2, send the default gateway IP address 192.168.1.254. Then I will exit. So now I will go to I will assign the IPv4 address on the router, on this interface of the router. Okay, so now, okay, I told you last time that we have different ways of having access to the router, to the CLI interface of the router. Okay, so we can either click just on packet tracer. Okay, if you want to have access to the router, you can you can directly click on the router and look at the menu here where they have written CLI. You click on the CLI and you will directly have access to the command line interface of the router. Okay, so now this is rapid. Okay, so now the normal way of having access to a network device, okay, even in real life, is the case where you should make use of what, of a laptop and the console connect cable. Okay, so you can take a console cable, connect to the laptop here, connect to the router here, to the console port here, and then from the laptop here, okay, you go to desktop, you go to terminal, and then you click OK here. So now you have access to what, to the command line interface of the router using the laptop, and this is what you will be doing in real life. Okay, so all this I already explained it. So now what I'm going to do, okay, so now what I'm going to do, so if I have to, let's say, imagine that if I was having a very big network where in which I have, let's say, more than 10 network devices, okay, that I have to manage, and then each time that I will need to manage them, I have to make use of a laptop and the console cable. You can see that, you can notice that, okay, I will not work efficiently with this using this way. So what I can do is just to use the way where I can directly access the CLI interface by clicking on the router. Okay, so packet tracer give us this possibility in order for us to work efficiently with the devices, so that you will not have to do this all the time with, or if in the case where you have many devices. You understand? So I'm just going to remove it. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, let me just go straight on the CLI interface by clicking on the router here. So now I'm currently at the user exec mode of configuration. I want to configure the IP address on the of this interface of the router, which is the Giga Ethernet 0/0. So I have to go on to the global mode of configuration first. Okay, using the command enable, I will abbreviate it EN, and here I will enter at the privilege mode. I will enter the command configure terminal, and from the global mode of configuration, I will now enter the interface Giga Ethernet 0/0 using the command interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0, and I will press enter. Now I'm into the interface mode of configuration. So now I will enter the command IP address, and I will enter the IP address 192.168.1.254 space, and I will put the subnet mask, which is 255.255.255.0, and I will press enter. Now the interface is not activated. You can see that the light color on this interface is red. But if I want to activate this interface, okay, I have to input the command no shutdown. And I remember that last time I told you that interfaces on switches are automatically or directly activated, but on routers they are not directly activated. You have to activate them using the no shutdown command. Okay, so after you enter the no shutdown command, you press enter, you see that now the interface will move from a down to the up state. Okay, you can see it here, Giga Ethernet 0/0 change state to up. Okay, so now after here you can now exit. You can exit from the interface mode of configuration. So now that you have configured this IP address on this interface of the router, you configure all the IP addresses on all the devices, you can now check using the ping tool if each of them they can communicate, okay, to each other. They can send messages to each other. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to check if this PC can communicate with this PC, and if it can communicate also with the default gateway, which is the router here. Are we okay? So now I'm going to this PC to PC0. I will go to the command prompt, and here I will enter the command ping, and I will firstly check if PC0 can communicate with PC1 here. PC1 is using the IP address 192.168.1.2. okay, so the ping message sends 4 messages. So when it will send the 4 messages, it will expect 4 replies, and if you get the 4 replies, it means that the communication is working fine. So I'm going to check, press enter. Okay, you can see that I'm currently receiving replies. Actually I have 4 replies because I've sent the ping message. I've sent 4 messages, 4 packets. Okay, and then here I've received 4, and there is no loss of messages. Okay, so PC0 is able to communicate with the PC1. So now I'm going to check if PC1 can communicate with the default gateway, the router, by pinging the default gateway interface IP address, which is 192.168.1.254. and you can see that I'm also receiving replies, so everything is fine. So now when configuring those when trying to configure Telnet and SSH on the network device or the routers or the switch, you have to make sure that okay, the devices in the computer, in the network, are able to communicate. There is connectivity between them. Okay, there is connectivity or reachability between them. You have to make sure that they are able to communicate before configuring SSH or Telnet, because if you configure SSH or Telnet on the router and this PC is not able to communicate with the router first, it means that you, after configuring SSH, the PC here will not be, the computer here will not be able to access the router, because the network at first is not working. You understand? So this, you have to make sure that everything is working fine, there is connectivity, they can ping each other, and then you can configure SSH or Telnet. Because if the network, if the, let's say the, how I can say it, the medium okay, the medium, or the, which is in our case the network, is not working, is not set, so no communication can go on between the computer and the router. So the computer will not be able to have access to the router. So now that I've checked, okay, and the communication is going on between all the devices in this network, I can now decide to configure SSH on what, on this router here. Okay, and I told you that, okay, when trying to configure SSH, okay, you have to make sure that some you yes, you have to make sure that you meet some requirement, okay, that you fulfill some requirement. And then here I told you that, okay, you have to make sure that, okay, that you configure the host name, or you change the host name of the device, okay, and you configure a domain name, you configure the crypto keys, a user account, and you also configure the line VTY, and you activate, you precise the SSH version you want to you want to use. So now what I'm going to do, let me go back on packet tracer here. So the first thing that I want to check is what is the just a minute. Okay, the first thing that I want to check is the host name here. So now we have to change the host name of the host name of the router. So the default host name of the router, you can see that here is router, that I have to change it. Okay, let's say that let me call this router, let me change the host name of this router to router 1. Okay, let me call it router 1, R1. Okay, so host name R1. So we change the host name of the router using the command host name, okay, at the global mode of configuration, and you can see that the name of the router has changed. So the first thing here, check, okay, this one we checked it. Okay, so now I have to configure what we call the domain name. Okay, so now most of the time the companies, they have what we call an organization sometimes is considered as what, a domain, and a network sometimes also is considered as what, a domain. So now we can configure what we call a domain name. Okay, so everything, all the devices, okay, under this domain, okay, they can be identified by something, okay, that will tell that will specify that, okay, they are part of this domain. Okay, let's say for instance that when you are under an organization, you see, for instance, in my organization at Improtech, okay, we have a domain, okay, and our domain is Improtech something. Now, then all the device, for instance, that are under the Improtech domain will have a name that can, for instance, start from instance that will be like, okay, let's say for instance laptop, okay, laptop 1, the Improtech dot something .com, for instance. Or even my email will be, for instance, Mr. Chris dot improtech.com. Okay, so now everything that I will be, my laptop, okay, my laptop will be under a specific domain, and that domain will be identified by the domain name here. Okay, so it is the domain name that tells my that precise in which domain am I. Okay, so this is basically what it means. So now we can configure this domain name here. We can configure, we have to configure it. Okay, so now okay, so now let me go on packet tracer. Okay, let me go on, okay, so we're going to package on the router here. So now here, in order to configure the domain name, I will use the command domain. Okay, the command is IP. Okay, IP domain name. Okay, and you put your domain name. Okay, let's say for instance the domain name in our case, let me put for instance an example, cisco.com, cisco.com. Okay, so now I'll configure that, I change the host name, I configure the domain name, and then okay, I can check it here. So domain name, check. Okay, now I have to configure what to the crypto keys. Okay, so now the SSH, as I said, okay, is a secure protocol. Okay, but now SSH will make use of a mechanism, okay, that make use of what we call security keys. okay, and those security keys, okay, those security keys, we have those security keys, okay. SSH here will make use of what we call security keys, and security keys, and those security keys are used to encrypt and decrypt the messages or the information that are exchanged through the SSH communication, okay. So now the security keys here will have what we call the public key, okay, one public key and the private key, public and private key. But now those keys are just used to decrypt and encrypt what the messages or the information that will be going through the SSH connection, okay. So now we have to activate them, we have to configure those keys, okay. But now if you did not, okay, let me precise it, if you did not, for instance, configure those two, okay, you can't configure the crypto keys here. So the crypto keys configuration is based on the host name and the domain name. If those two are not configured, you will not be able to configure the crypto key. So let me show you, let me prove that. Okay, so let me go on packet tracer. Okay, let's say let me take an example, let me take another router, for instance. Let me go on this router. Okay, so you can see, for instance, on this router is having the default name. I didn't change anything, okay. I will not change its default name, okay. I will not also configure the domain name, but I will directly try to configure the crypto keys, okay. So I'll go to the privilege mode of configuration, then go to the global mode of configuration, and from the global mode of configuration, let me try to configure the keys, the security keys, using the command crypto key, okay, generate crypto key generate RSA, okay. This is the command you have to use to generate the key, and then you press enter. So now when you press enter, you press enter, you see that there is a message which is displayed saying what, please define a host name other than router, meaning that I have to configure it first before trying to configure what, the security keys. So now let me change the name of the router. Okay, let me change it host name, and let me put it, for instance, router 2, okay. So now I've changed the name of the router. Let me try again to configure the crypto key generate RSA. You can see that now another message, I configured the host name, but still I'm trying to configure the crypto key, I have another message which is telling me that please define a domain name first, okay. So let me now define the domain name using the command ip domain name -name. Let me put, for instance, test.com, okay. So now let me try to create the security keys, okay. Crypto crypto key generate RSA, press enter. Now it's working, okay. So this is how it works. You have to make sure that the host name and the domain name are configured before creating what, the crypto keys. So this was just an example, okay. Let me go back to the router here. Okay, so now here I configure the host name and the domain name. So what I have to do, I can now configure what the crypto keys, the security keys. So now the command is crypto key generate RSA, okay. So now and now after here you press enter, okay. So now here you see when you press enter, they will tell you that, okay, you have to choose the modulus, okay. So the modulus is what define how strong will be the keys that you will create, okay. So now those keys are created by this mechanism that we call RSA, okay. It's the RSA mechanism or algorithm that will create those keys. But now those key will have a specific number of bits, okay. So for instance here they say choose the size of the key modulus in the range of 360 to 4096 for your general purpose keys. choosing a key modulus greater than, so choosing a key modulus greater than, choosing a key modulus greater than 512 may take a few minutes. Okay, and then here the 512 here define the number of bits, and the more, if you have let's say, the more bit you will use to create the key, the more stronger the key will be. Okay, so if the more stronger the keys will be. Okay, so in order to for SSH to be more secure, you have to make sure that, okay, the modulus that you are precising here is let's say higher enough. Okay, so the default one is 512. Okay, but they advise us to mostly to use the 1024, to use 1024 as modulus. Okay, so if you are using, if you use 1024 as modulus, it at your those security keys that will be created by the RSA algorithm will be strong enough. Are you okay? So now you have to, you can leave it that way by default using the 512, or you can change it, but I will advise you to change it to 1024 for it to be strong enough. Okay, for those security keys to be strong enough. Are you okay? And then after here you press enter. Okay, so now when you press enter, you can see that now they said what, generating 1024 bit RSA keys. Okay, so the RSA keys, okay, will have 20, will have will be made of 1024 bits. Okay, to decrypt those RSA keys it will be difficult because the Pamela, you have a question?
Yes, please. I was wondering whether we can. It's okay to use the maximum value. I see it said range of 360 to 4096.
Yeah, but
Can we use the maximum?
yes, you can, but take in account the what is mentioned here. The more the more higher will be the modulus that you will choose. It will take time for your device to generate those security keys. You understand? Okay, so now when trying to use the maximum here, make sure that your device, the router that you are using, has powerful resources. Okay, for instance RAM, CPU. Okay, so that at this moment, okay, when they will try to generate it, you will use the maximum modulus here. It won't take time from the router to generate those security keys because the router has enough resources to generate them in a faster way. Okay, but if your router is not that powerful and then you are trying to generate the security keys that are very strong, it may take time for your router to generate them if your router is having less resources. You understand? Is it clear enough?
Yes, please.
But yes, as I said, but you can use the maximum, but now just make sure that, okay, that your router has powerful resources to generate those key in a faster way. Okay, so now here you can see that my keys were generated. So now I can go back to my list here and say that, okay, let me clean here. Okay, let me clean here, and let's say that, okay, now the crypto keys here checked. Okay, so now, okay, let me go back to packet tracer. So now the next thing that you have to do, yeah, Pamela, again, another one.
Yes, please. Forgive me, I got distracted at a point. The crypto key, you mentioned public and private. So the RSA, which one does it generate? Is it a private one or a public one? Or
the RSA will generate both.
The one we just generated.
The RSA will generate both.
Okay.
I mean, on the router here. Okay, let me explain it. Okay, let me just explain it. Okay, so on the router here, okay, when you configure, you create the generate key. The router here will generate two keys. Okay, using the RSA algorithm, it will generate two keys. One key will be public. Okay, a public one key will be private to the router. Okay, so meaning that when the public key, okay, and the private key. The private key is the one that the router will keep for itself. It will not share it to anyone, and any device in the network will know what this private key is. You understand? But now this public key is what it will generate. It will share to what, to the device that want to exchange, that want to communicate with him. So the router, the device here will be informed, okay, will be informed by the router of the public key. Okay, but now this public key here is what the device, the computer here will use. But the computer will use this public key to encrypt everything that he wants to exchange with the router. You understand? So when this device will want to send the data, let's say that he wants to send some messages to the router, he would, those message, the content of those messages will be encrypted with the public key. Okay, but now when this message that was encrypted with the public key will get to the router here, and the router will receive this encrypted message, only this private key, that the private key that the router has, will be able to decrypt what is encrypted with this public key. You understand? And this is how it works. Okay, it's like,
Okay, so does it mean that,
yeah, go on.
okay, so does it mean after RSA is generated, the public key is assigned to the PC that you are SSHing from, or how does the PC get the public key from the router?
But when you will launch the connection from the laptop here, when you will input the you remember with Telnet, I was using Telnet, and I was putting the IP address 192.168.1.25 for the IP address of what, of the router. And this is when the device here will try to launch the Telnet connection with establish the Telnet connection with the router. So now when there is another command that I will use for SSH, which is, let's say, SSH -L, and you add some other information. But now when you use this command of the router, the computer here, the computer will try to establish a SSH communication with what, with the router, and it's at this moment that this exchange will be happen. Because
Okay.
because everything because I already configured beforehand those crypto keys are on the router, so they are present there. Okay, they are already there. But now when trying, the computer here will try to establish a SSH connection with the router. The router now will notice that, okay, there is a device here which is trying to establish a connection with me. Okay, let me share it the public key that we will use to encrypt his data, and I will use my private key to exchange to decrypt the data that he will be sending. So it is at this moment that this exchange will happen. But it's not like after that you will create the RSA keys and the router is going to share it to all the devices in the network. No. It's only when the device will try to establish the connection that the router will exchange the keys. They will go through the key exchange.
Okay.
Are we okay? Okay.
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. So now, okay, when it comes to those concept of keys, so we also have what we call as symmetric keys and asymmetric keys, but this one is it's really related to security concept and everything. But the general idea is what I've explained without going in deep. Okay, so now okay, where was I? Yeah, okay, so I generated the keys on what, I generated the keys on the router. Okay, I generated the keys on the router. Okay, and then the last thing that I have to configure is what, I have to create the user account. Okay, so now you remember that when I was configuring Telnet last time. Okay, so let me just explain it here. Okay, where is that thing? Okay, so now let's say that I configured SSH or Telnet. configured SSH or Telnet on the router here, and all of us we are, and let's say that, and all of us in the network, we are all the network engineer wants to have access to this network device. So now I can either configure a password, let's say that just configure a single password, that, and that single password everyone will be using that password to have access to what, to the router. Okay, meaning that, okay, like now, okay, I can configure, for instance, SSH, and say that, okay, the password here, when using SSH, the password, for instance, is Cisco, meaning that if this device here wants to access the router here using SSH, is going to make use of what, of the password Cisco. And this device also, if I want to use it to access the router here, I'm also going to make use of the same password, which is Cisco. But I'm talking about the device, but I mean the network administrator, which is there, which is using the laptop, is the one using the password to access the router in order to manage it. So it means that that same password will be shared by all the network administrator. But now imagine, for instance, that, okay, the first network administrator, which is here, okay, let's say that this is John, for instance. John, let's say, connected to the device, the router here, at 10 a.m. okay, 10 a.m. on Monday. Okay, let's say that on Monday at 10 a.m. John connected to the device and he did some configuration. Okay, so now at 12 let's say that even at 1:30 p.m. okay, this guy, let's say that this is Paul came and Paul connected to the same device and also did some changes. Okay, but Paul and John, they are using this, they use the same password, that common password, to have access to what, to the same device. But now when Paul connected to the device, Paul did some changes, and those changes affected the router in a bad way, meaning that the router was misbehaving. Now the router was not working fine. Okay, so now the manager will come and then will notice that, okay, this device is not working fine, and then he will try to find out who is the last person that worked on who accessed the last person that accessed the router, who is the last person that did some configuration on the router. Paul knows that he is the one, but he can decide to stay quiet, okay, and not to say that, okay, I was the one who did some configuration, and those configuration badly impacted what, the router. So in order to not be punished by the manager, he can decide to stay to lie and stay quietly without saying anything. And then based on that, the manager will never know who is the person that let's say, for instance, accessed the device and did those configurations that badly have affected the router. Okay, so now, even having this fact that we are having a common password is not so secure, because this common password here is, okay, maybe by sharing it, okay, because all of us, we are sharing the same password, okay, and I can say that, okay, let's say that it's Paul that did that bad things, but Paul can say that, okay, it was John, for instance. Okay, and Paul can say that, okay, John is using the same, we all have the same password, so John also can have access to the device. Maybe he's the one that did those things. Okay, and now it's even difficult to track, okay, the activity that is what is done on the router. Okay, the changes that are done on the router is even difficult to track them, because we can't know who's the person. We can't identify each one with their name or with something specific. You understand? The only thing that they are using is what is the common password, and all of them, they are using that same password. So in order to make it different, we can decide to create, for instance, what we call local accounts. But those local accounts here will be made of what? Of username. Okay, they will be made of a username and what? And the password. So meaning that now, instead of having one common password, so we'll create accounts for each of the network administrator. You understand? So we create an account for John, and John will have its own password. And we'll create another Paul's account on the router, and Paul also will have what? Its own password. Okay, so now using those local accounts, okay, when John, for instance, will connect to the device, we can track, for instance, the activities on the device. We can see that, okay, maybe at 10 a.m. the person that connected at 10 a.m. on the network device was what? It was John. Okay, and the one that connected to the device at 1:30 p.m. it was Paul, and Paul was the last person that was connected on the device. Okay, so using those local accounts, you can bring security, a level of security on what, in the network, because each of us will have separate accounts and separate passwords. Okay, so now and so now when it comes to those user accounts that I was saying that I have to configure, okay, this is basically what I was thinking about. Okay, so now let me create those user accounts, okay, on the router here. So now if you want to create a user account, let's say that I will create a user, I will create two user, okay, I will create two user, Paul and John. Okay, so I will use the command username, I will put, for instance, Paul, and password Paul, username Paul, password Paul. Okay, this is just for testing purposes. And then I will create another username, another account. Okay, I will use, for instance, username John, password John. Okay, press enter. Okay, so now I'll say that, okay, let me go on here. Okay, so user account checked. Okay, so now that I've created the user account, I can now configure what to the line virtual. So now let me go to the line under the, let me now configure the line virtual using the command line. Okay, virtual is 0. Okay, I told you last time that if I enter the code, the special command %, I can create up to 16 line virtual. From 0 to 15 we have 16 line virtuals. Okay, so now, and each line virtual will be used for one specific connection. Okay, so now let me activate 5 virtual connection. Okay, no, let me activate 3 virtual connection. So because I want to create one virtual connection for okay, I will create a virtual 0, okay, line virtual 0 for this first device here, and I will create line virtual 1 for this second device here, and I'll also create line virtual 2 for a third device that maybe I will add in the network. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, okay, let me just create 2 for PC0 and PC1. Okay, let me just create 2 and we'll move here. So meaning that I have to activate, if I want 2 line virtual for the 2 devices here, for 2 communication for 2 connection to the router at the same time, I have to create line virtual from 0 up to 1. So what I'm going to do here, so I will enter here, so line virtual 0 up to 1, and I will press enter. Okay, and then now under the line virtual here, as I said, we want to configure what, we want to configure SSH. So if I input the special command %, you can see that, okay, I have to use the command transport, okay, this command here, transport, to define the transport protocol for the line virtual. Okay, so I'll use the command transport, okay, input, okay, I'll put %, and what I was explaining to Pamela, this is what I was explaining to Pamela. You can see that I have what, Telnet here, SSH, I have all, and I have none. So you can decide to just activate Telnet, and only Telnet will be activated. You can decide to activate SSH, only SSH will be activated, or you can decide to activate all, and all means that you activate SSH and Telnet both at the same time, or you can decide to activate none, meaning that no protocols will be neither SSH or no Telnet. Okay, so in my case I only want to activate SSH, so I'll input transport input SSH and I will press enter. Okay, transport input SSH, I will press enter. Okay, so now if you want it to work, I said that if you remember that when you were configuring Telnet, I told you that when you configure the password, you also have to preset the command login under the command login under the line virtual. But now the command login under the line virtual will only request the person that is accessing the device remotely to provide a password. Okay, so yes, Pamela, another one.
Yes, please forgive me for my plenty questions today. It keeps me awake.
No, don't worry.
Okay. The So would you advise that the other VTYs, when you don't, how do I put my question? So right now I see you have done only 2.
Yeah.
So the other VTYs, it's safe to keep them not activated, right? Or
Yes,
if
kind
if you
of.
put all the 16 on, does it spoil something?
No, it won't spoil anything, but it's like you are giving the possibility or the opportunity to someone else to connect to the device. Okay, because
Mm,
right now, okay,
okay.
that also depends on the number of person you are expecting to have access to this device at the same time. Let's say, for instance, right now I activated 2 because I'm assuming that I have 2 network administrator in my case here. Okay, and maybe at a specific moment the 2 will be connected to the network device at the same time and they will be working together. You understand? So now I only want those 2 to be connected at the same time on that device. Meaning that if there's a third person here, there's a third device which is here, okay, because I only activated 2, when the third one here will try to launch a SSH connection to the router, it won't work because there's no more line virtual available for the new connection. You understand? And then if you are
Mm.
expecting to have, let's say for instance, three people that will be connected to the device at the same time, you can increase what the number of line which one activate that you would which is press activate that you will activate. Okay, so in my case I'm only expecting the 2 device, okay, if the two persons or 2 network administrator to be connected to the device at the same time. That's why I activated only 2. So meaning that, okay, when this guy here, okay, let's say that this guy will connect to the device, to the router using SSH, and he's going to use line VHY 0, but the line VHY 1 is still available. If someone else is launching a SSH connection to the router, that person is going now to use the available line VHY, which is line VHY 1. But now there is no more line VHY available for a new connection. Okay, the only way the only way that someone can connect again to the device is if one of the 2, okay, let's say they are done doing what they were doing. Let's say for instance the one, this guy here finished to do whatever he was doing, and this line v1 is available again. Okay, line v1 is available again. It's only at that moment that if we were having a third device here, that third device can now connect to the router using again the line v1 1, but we only have 2. Okay, and if this guy here wants to connect again, he won't be able because right now the 2 are in use. Yes, Olufemi.
Good evening. Sorry, after the first 2 or 3, after they have configured it, can we configure another one after the first configuration?
Yeah, you can configure another one.
So system laptop 1, excuse me, laptop 2, can we add to make it 3? But while we have already configured 2 BTY.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. You can increase it.
Okay. Okay.
I can increase it. Okay. Okay. So now I configured. So okay, where was I? Okay, line v1 0 and 1. Okay, and then I configured transport input SSH. But now I was saying that, okay, when I was configuring Telnet last time, okay, when I was configuring Telnet last time, okay, under the line v1, under the line the okay, under the line v2y, okay, for instance 0 up to 0, I configure the command transport input telnet, okay, and then I added the command login. Without this command, okay, this one cannot take effect. Okay, so now when you, for instance, you configure this a router, okay, and then you have a switch here, you have a device here, and that this device is having access to the router here using Telnet, okay, using Telnet, and you configure this, okay. Under the line virtual here, you also precise what the password, but the password, let's say for instance you will precise for instance password Cisco, okay, password Cisco. When this guy here will try to have access to the router using Telnet, the router is going to prompt it, is going to ask this device to provide what the password, the guy which is using this device to provide what the password, and this is because of what this login command. Okay, so the login command here will prompt to the person that is having access to the router to provide a password. But now we have another one, which is login local, and the login local here make use of what of the user account, meaning that when you enter the login local, enter the line virtual, the login local is going to prompt to the network administrator which is trying to have access to the device to provide what username, its username and its password. Okay, make this difference. Login will prompt the person, the person who is trying to have access to the device to provide what only the password, okay, but the login local will request or will prompt that person to provide the username and the password, which is different. Okay, and in my case here with SSH, I want the router to prompt to those person to request or to ask those person to provide what their username and their password when trying to have access to what to the network device, to the router. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, okay, so now what I'm going to do, let me go on the router here, and I'm going to use it. Okay, I'm going to enter the command login local, and I'll press enter. Okay, and after this I can exit, and I can check my configuration by looking at the running configuration file using the command do show run. Okay, you can see that in my running configuration file I have my host name that I configured. Okay, I have what my username that I configured, username Paul and password John. Okay, and you remember that last time we saw how to make the password unreadable and to encrypt the password. You see that right now using the command password, the password is not encrypted. Okay, it's in clear text. Okay, but I can, for instance, I can encrypt it. Okay, I can encrypt it using the command. Using the command. Okay, for instance, service password encryption. Let me press enter. Okay, if I check again my running configuration, if I do show run, you can see that now the password that was in clear text, they are now encrypted with the type 7 encryption algorithm. Okay, so now you can see that I told you that last time this type 7 encryption password, they are not that strong. We can encrypt, we can decrypt them. Okay, there are available tools online that you can use to decrypt those passwords. And now you can also make use of another command that is another type of password which is more secure, which is stronger, and which is the type 5 password. And the type 5 password make use of the MD5 encryption hashing algorithm. So now when configuring the username and the password here, and you want to make use of you want to configure a type 5 password, instead of using the type 5, instead of using the password keyword here, you can use the command secret. And when using the command secret, you automatically, the password of that username will be encrypted with the MD5 hashing algorithm. Let me show it to you. Let's say that I want to configure a third username. Okay, let me configure a third account. Let me configure a third account. So username, for instance, let me take for instance Chris. Okay, and instead of using password, if I press question mark like this, you can see that I have secret and I have password. So I don't want to use the password. Okay, I will use the secret one. Okay, the secret keyword. So I will use secret, and I will put for instance Chris again. But now you see that automatically the password of this new user will be encrypted using a type 5 hashing algorithm. And if okay, let me check my running configuration file. Do show run. You can now see that okay, I have three accounts